Let me tell you, if you think the world has changed, try sitting in first class as an 11-year-old black girl billionaire and watch what happens when a grown man decides you can't possibly belong there. Yeah, that happened, and I was there, right in the middle of it, feeling every eye burn into my skin like my mere existence was a disturbance. The plane had barely started to hum, that familiar click and buzz of boarding routines, when suddenly, my boarding pass for seat 2, it wasn't enough for the guy scowling at me from his spot. He was dressed sharp, voice sharp too. I paid for first class, he kept repeating, as if the price of his ticket had the power to erase mine. Dad was there, steady as a mountain, hand on my shoulder, calm voice hiding the storm I knew was always ready to break for me. My daughter's seat was purchased weeks ago. He said every word measured, every muscle tight, eyes fixed not just on the man, but on the flight attendant caught between policies and people. But none of that mattered to the folks in first class who'd already decided the disruption was me. Let me back up a sec, because you got to see where this all started to get just how wild it got. I'm a Mara Jenkins kid from Detroit, NASA pajamas, code on 3 monitors in my room, and the kind of nerds you get before pitching your billion-dollar company to a room full of old-school tech investors. Dreamscape, the platform I built, was about to change the world again, and my dad, Marcus, the guy who left a whole engineering career just to have my back, was right there making sure I remembered why we did it in the first place. You're not here to prove you belong, he'd say. They need what you built. And I'd nod, tuck my hair behind my ear 100 times, and wish that certainty was contagious. Detroit Metro at dawn is a blur of tired faces and busy hands, and we fit right in, moving through the crowds like we'd done it 100 times. Me, passport stamped from Tokyo to London to Singaporino, one looking at us, no one knowing who we were, and that's just how we liked it. My company's been in Forbes and TechCrunch, but Dad made sure my face never washed, said I should let my work speak first, not my age or how I look. When the boarding call came, Dad handed me the boarding pass for 2A, his own ticket back in economy 3 rows and a world away. Push the button if you need me, he said, and I felt his love and worry both pressing down on me as I walked into that luxury bubble of first class. Everything in there whispers money leather seats, little lights, smiles that don't quite reach the eyes if you don't look like you fit. I learned to walk tall, to smile, to keep my voice calm. I had no idea the test wasn't even close to over. I took my seat, stashed my bag, and ran through my pitch one more time. Across the aisle, a woman, gray hair, sharp eyes, gave me a real smile. Not the kind you use to fill space, but the kind that says, I see you. I smiled back, grateful. That calm didn't last. In came Richard Blackwell, all huff and hurry, waving his boarding pass, making it clear he thought there was no way I belonged in his seat. Check again, he barked at the flight attendant, Sandra, who kept her cool as she checked both our passes. Miss Jenkins is correctly seated, she said, and you could feel the temperature in the cabin drop a degree as Richard exploded. Economy? I never fly economy. His voice carried, people started whispering, and I felt that old, sharp edge of being a kid and being seen as a problem. Richard turned to Sandra, trying to reason her into making me move. Surely the young lady wouldn't mind relocating. She probably doesn't need the workspace like I do. That landed like a slap, but I sat still, clutching my boarding pass, hearing my dad's voice in my head. Never give up your seat so someone else can feel more comfortable with their prejudice. And then, out of nowhere, the woman across the aisle, Elizabeth Montgomery, steps in. Perhaps I might offer my seat, she says, looking Richard dead in the eye. That would solve the issue, wouldn't it? The cabin went silent. Richard took the out, grumbling, and Elizabeth winked at me as she slid into Economy Plus, like this was just another day's work. But that wasn't the end. As the plane lifted off, my dad found himself sitting next to Elizabeth, and their conversation, quiet and careful, turned from small talk to big ideas, what it means to fight for your kid in a world where people see only what they want to see, how you teach a child to stay hopeful when reality tries to knock her down. Back up in first, I started sketching ideas for how to make Dreamscape accessible for visually impaired kids. Richard, still sulking, couldn't help but look over. He asked what I was drawing, and when I explained, for just a second, the wall between us thinned. But right then, Turbulence hit the kind that rattles your teeth and scrambles your thoughts. Suddenly, Zoe, my COO, appeared by my side, helping me breathe through the panic like she always does. "You good?" she asked, not as an employee, but as the person who's always got my back. That's when the whispers started. Did she say she works for the kid? And Richard's eyes went wide as he put it together. The flight was already a circus, but then it went full-blown crisis. The captain called me up to the cockpit, never a good sign. "Security has a concern," he said. Someone had called in, claiming I was traveling under false identification, that Dad was using me as a front for illegal business. The timing? Exactly 20 minutes after the seat dispute. I didn't have to guess who made that call. We were diverted to Oakland. The FBI boarded, took us off the plane. Dad and Zoe stood tall beside me, while Richard sat sweating in his seat, pale as milk. As we answered questions, our lawyer Diane stormed in, fire in her eyes and a folder in her hand. "This isn't just random," she said. "There's a pattern. Every black-led tech company about to get funding gets hit with these accusations, all traced to one group, TechCore Ventures." Twist of fate: Elizabeth, the woman from my flight, was a VP at TechCore. But she'd quit the day before, and now she was blowing the whistle, bringing evidence that tied TechCore to a whole campaign of sabotage and lies. Richard, racked with guilt, confessed his company, bought by TechCore, had meetings about taking us down. He tried to get ahead of the fallout, giving us documents that helped bring the whole thing to light. The next morning, I stood in front of Sunk's board. Elizabeth, now one of the men, pitched our vision for Dreamscape. We won the funding, we won their public support, and as the news broke of the FBI investigation into TechCore, the world finally saw what so many try to hide: the way power bends the rules to protect itself. 6 months later, I stood on a stage in Detroit, launching Dreamscape's Global Access Initiative, looking out at kids who reminded me of me, teachers, parents, even Elizabeth and Richard. Changed, humbled, learning. A little girl raised her hand and asked, "What do I say when people tell me I'm too young to code?" I told her, tell them age is just a number. Show them what you can do, because that's the only way anything ever changes. So yeah, it started with a seat on a plane, but it became a fight for who gets to build the future. That's not just my story, that's the story of anyone who's ever been told you don't belong and decided, you know what, I do. If you've ever felt that, if you've ever been doubted, blocked, or pushed aside, share your story. Drop a comment, tell me where you're watching from, and let's talk about what justice really means when the doors finally open for all of us.